Hi, Troy. Could you kindly introduce yourself and FocalPoint Coaching? Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Ariana. Thank you for the opportunity. So my name is Troy Weber. I'm the president of Weber Advisors, Inc. I spent 31 years in my corporate world in literally in semiconductor manufacturing. So I spent about 10 years of my career literally in operations and engineering and everything supporting a wafer fab. And so I enjoyed all the engineering, the maintenance, the controls, everything supporting that activity. And then about 10 years in quality, both in the wafer fab and then ended up being the global supplier quality director, managing the supply chain globally. So I spent a lot of time traveling the globe and learning in cultures all over the world and being educated in those cultures as well as ways of thinking differently globally. The last third of my career literally was spent in supply chain and logistics. I ran operations in 2 countries and fell in love with the cultures again and the ways of thinking around the world. And running those operations and moving product in and out of countries became quite challenging. And then after 31 years in the corporate world, I literally decided what was the next chapter after an early retirement? What does that look like? So I decided to pay it forward, 31 years of experience and work with business owners and executives and do some consulting from a technical standpoint. And that's what I do now with Weber Advisors, Inc. And it's a DBA of FocalPoint Coaching of North Texas. And I enjoy working with business owners and executives. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, Ariana.
You're welcome. So, Troy, as the manufacturing sector has changed over the decades and supply chain has played a very, I would say, fundamental role in a smooth manufacturing operations, like how has the supply chain and logistics changed along with the manufacturing?
You know, it's a great question, and I love the way you phrase that because in supply chain and logistics, you're always chasing manufacturing. So, and I'll give you a case in point. This is a really good one. Automotive manufacturing has moved literally all over the world, and so I tracked it in Southeast Asia. I tracked it in North Asia, all over the world. So supply chain and logistics has to support that, right? So the first one I would mention would be the increase in global commerce has really forced a lot of advancements. I know that's a very strong word, but what I mean by that is when you have manufacturing occurring in various sectors of the world, you have to develop that infrastructure. You have to develop that need to support them. And how you do that is visibility. You know, that's a real key change that I saw in the supply chain and logistics is visibility of your product wherever it is, whether it be on, you know, on the sea or in the air, being able to track that globally. You know, that wasn't present that many years ago. Monitoring of delicate, equipment, especially in the semiconductor manufacturing world. Obviously, the manufacturing equipment's very, very expensive. So now you have things like shock monitors. How is your equipment being handled globally because you have this international global commerce going on? Temperature monitoring. You know, now we can track temperature sensitive materials, whether it be raw materials or what have you, literally live throughout transit times. We couldn't do that before. You know, you'd end up and have some bad product and have to throw it away. And it's very expensive, obviously, sourcing it all over the world. So those are a couple of things that I've seen very rapidly expand. Another one is a dynamic compliance issue. And what I mean by that is compliance can be very timely and cumbersome. However, when you can do that electronically while it's in transit, it's much more efficient when it gets to its final destination. So a lot of improvements in the compliance characteristics, again, supporting that global commerce that we need today. Another one is optimized shipping. You know, we take that for granted. We'd set in, agreements with various carriers, what have you, and based upon size, weight, volume, what have you. Those days are over. I mean, now you're literally looking at a package, the dimensions, the weight on the fly, and doing spot buys based upon the characteristics and needs to get to those destinations. So you're doing that on the fly, dynamically. Why? Because we have that infrastructure, those systems in place to do it. Another one that really has changed our whole globe and the way we think, and we used to call it in the supply chain and logistics world, the Amazon experience. And if you think about that, we use that word, that terminology very casually, but what does it really mean? We want it now, we want to order it on our phone, and we want it delivered. That's the way people think today, all of us, right? It's become a way of life. Well, as a result of that, guess what? Commerce has changed as well. And that kind of leads me right into e-commerce. That I remember when that buzzword first came out, many years ago, e-commerce. Well, Amazon perfected it to a point where now it's not only commodities for your home, it's now, well, what if I want some semiconductors? Or what if I want this service or want that? Can I just order it and have it delivered? So the whole mindset of even semiconductor manufacturing became an e-commerce rich environment. So you had to change all the infrastructure and be smart about how do you use AI? How do you use the Industry 4.0 to really get some lift of being able to meet those customer needs and enhancing that productivity to a level where you can function in a lights out type environment. So those are just some ideas of things that come to mind regarding changes in the industry. Yeah, they've been substantial and they've been driven by the need for that international commerce.
That's cool. And I mean, with so much disruptions ongoing since 2020, how has Industry 4.0 used to be able to support or rather help the unplanned disruption in the supply chain?
Great question. And I would argue that there's a lot of Industry 4.0 that has prevented those unplanned disruptions also. And let me give you a case in point. So I ran two operations in two countries from a product distribution standpoint. And then e-commerce came on the scene many years ago. And how do you deal with that? Now it's not pallets of material or even boxes of material. It's two semiconductor chips being shipped to Ariana in Prague or in TED in Seattle. How do you do that? When all of your infrastructure and systems are around pallets and around forklifts and high bay racks and things like that, the whole mindset had to change. So where did the Industry 4.0 come in? Absolutely. First of all, you're spending an inordinate amount of money on volumetric space in a warehouse that's literally wasted. So then you start thinking differently. Why do I need all these aisles? Why do I need forklifts? I need smaller quantities that I can move quickly because I've got a college student in New York that wants one or two of these to test in their garage. And maybe they're the next Bill Gates. Maybe they're the next innovators of the world. How do you do that quickly when your whole system is designed around pallets, is designed around large quantity? So you bring in robotics. So we introduced in two parts of the world an auto store system. And basically what it does is it's robots running on top of a grid, which allows you to, shall I say, make the space more dense and you have less waste. So I literally was able to cut out 100,000 square feet of warehouse space and go with a very dense packed, picture an aluminum type grid with robots running on top that literally could put away and retrieve orders before the people even showed up for work. And then if there was a need in another part of the world, it would communicate those orders to that operation of e-commerce with those robots on that part of the world to satisfy those customer requirements. So it forced a whole different way of thinking about operations and supply chain and logistics. Now it's about speed. Now it's always been about quality, but quality and speed, and it can't be very expensive because you need to move it quickly. You've got to create that Amazon experience, not in a household commodity, but even in semiconductors. How do you get it to a college student or an innovator or someone that's wanting to test something out? And they don't need 1 million units. They need 2. So that whole process changed where now you have robots running at 2 to 3 meters a second on top of a grid, literally, and digging down, if you will, into these crates and being able to pick them up and deliver them via an elevator type thing to the operator. But it's done literally lights out before the operators, quote unquote, even arrive to work. So when they are in the warehouse, now the operation is running and the robots are fulfilling orders and moving orders to other parts of the world if that's what's required on the fly without any intervention. So that has changed a lot of the way we think. And in terms of unplanned, think about that a moment. If my robots sense the fact that these orders are demanded here in the United States and they realize that a quantity is low, they'll shift the order automatically to Asia and support it out of Asia and vice versa, other parts of the world. So what does that really mean? What it really means is as we put together business continuity plans, we need to leverage that Industry 4.0 and use that AI to our benefit and use it strategically to minimize or eliminate those unplanned disruptions. And then I would even argue that when you do have those unplanned disruptions, how do you quickly, adapt and move accordingly? Well, the blessing is when you have those BCP plans in place, those will happen automatically. You don't even have to intervene in the middle of that because the systems already realize, hey, I'm low on this inventory, but hey, it's in Asia, so pick it up there, ship it, make sure the customer's aware it might take an extra day or so, but they're going to get their product. It's not, waiting in the wings. So lots of those types of operations and even retrieval type systems we've moved into in the warehouse operations is, again, what are you really trying to do is increase productivity around the globe? Because again, what's driving it all? International commerce. So you have people ordering things on their phone literally from all over the world. How do you support that? How do you do it effectively? How do you do it cost consciously? And how do you support the demand at the speed at which they want it also? Again, that Amazon experience. So those kinds of things have changed. Even the warehouse operations, like I said, have been around for decades and decades and decades. Now they're very different. There's a lot of robotics. There's a lot of automation. Even the conveyors are programmable logic controlled. So you've got a lot of intelligence built into these systems. And again, the objective is not that the people are bad or not warranted. They absolutely are. But now you target the people in specific areas they need to be in and let the robotics and let the AI handle the mundane and speed up processes, in a lights out type operation so that your people can be most effective and most productive. Does that help?
Yep, very. Thank you so much for taking time off for this expert's insight with us. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please kindly subscribe to Troy's monthly newsletter. I will add the link. Yep, so do go in from there and get in touch with him. Do